Again, welcome to Parent Tips. This is our 9th episode. We are so happy at how far we are coming. We are grateful that we are getting better and better along the way, and we look forward to even more exciting conversations and episodes coming up. And so we thank you for joining us. Thank you to those who's been supportive. Please check us out, like our pages, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram. We are Parent Tips KE. Please do that and interact. Ask as many questions as you can, because as we always say, that is where we get our content. So thank you. The past few weeks, I've been talking about sexual abuse among children, and I got a lot of questions. Some were direct, some were very personal and very painful. But I decided to take 1 or 2 or 3 more weeks to answer some of these questions from people, because I felt that this is information that would be helpful to not only those people who ask the questions, but also to the rest of us in this channel. And so today I'll kick it off with a question by Grace. She asked, Parent Tips, what exactly is sexual abuse? Because in this time and day, there's a lot of confusion. There are teachers who are touching children, and then they're accused of sexual abuse. And then there are sexual offenders who are touching children and they wiggle their way out of it and say it was innocent. So how do you identify sexual abuse? And I'll attempt to answer that as best as I can. But first and foremost, let me put it on the table. Sexual abuse, whether it is with a child or with an adult, does not begin when penetration happens. There is a lot of sexual abuse that can happen outside of penetration. So let's get that out of the way first. But secondly, I'll give examples of sexual abuse, and I'll classify sexual abuse in 2 ways. The first way is touch or contact sexual abuse, which involves physical contact. And the second way is non-touch or non-contact sexual abuse, which does not involve physical contact. So we start with the touch sexual abuse, and I'll give you examples of that so that you can understand what it's all about. The first is making a child touch someone else's genitals. That's completely inappropriate when you make a child touch another child's or another adult's genitals. That is sexual abuse. Secondly, encouraging a child to play sexual games. That is sexual abuse. I've heard of stories where children are playing a kalongo with adults, maybe with a caregiver or an adult, and they begin to simulate the sexual act. They may lie on each other and rub their bodies together. Now, when you do that with a child, that is sexual abuse, encouraging a child to play sexual games. Thirdly is a bit direct. That is having sex with a child, penetrating a child's vagina, anus, or mouth with your sexual organs. That is direct, having sex with a child. Fourthly and lastly is putting objects or body parts like fingers, into a child's vagina, a child's anus, or a child's mouth for sexual pleasure. And the reason why I add for sexual pleasure is because there are instances where doctors will check out a child's private parts, probably in the presence of a parent. But the reason why I say for sexual pleasure is because that is where the boundary is drawn. If anyone is touching your child for any other reason other than what is known to you, then you need to really investigate what is happening with your child. So the second category is the non-contact or non-touch sexual abuse. And this is where the debate around penetration comes in. But the first is something we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we talked about sexual abuse and the internet. The first is porn, watching porn with your child. That is sexual abuse. Or watching an adult watching porn with a child, or any exposure to pornography to a child is sexual abuse. The second one is encouraging a child to watch or listen to sexual acts. A child's mind is not ready for all that. So when you encourage them to listen or watch sexual acts, that is considered sexual abuse. Thirdly is exposing the genitals of an adult to a child. And this one can be a bit of a debate because there are parents who feel it is okay to undress and to dress in front of a child. In my opinion, I highly discourage it because if you're trying to teach your child about boundaries and about the privacy of their bodies and about nudity, then it needs to begin with you showing the child that they need to respect your privacy and that you're private and that they cannot see your nudity as they want to see it. So for me, it's important that we do not undress or expose our genitals to children, or an adult does not do that to any child. That is considered sexual abuse. Fourthly, photographing children in sexual poses, and we've seen that a lot, especially where there's child pornography, and some parents do it obliviously. You know, they put makeup on their children and they take photos of the children, and those children look completely like adults, and we expose our children to people out there who may be sexually attracted to children, and in some instances that is considered sexual abuse. Lastly is inappropriately or sexually watching a child undressing or using the bathroom. Now this can also be debated, but we are adults and we know when someone is looking at us inappropriately and when someone is checking us out sexually. It's easy for us to see that, and it's also easy for us to see when an adult is checking out a child inappropriately. Furthermore, depending on the child's age, why would you be standing in a bathroom looking at a child showering or looking at a child taking a bath, especially if you're not there to supervise the child? You're simply there to have a good time checking them out. That is considered sexual abuse. So inappropriately watching a child undress or using the bathroom. And that's what I got when I tried to check out some instances or examples of sexual abuse and how we can identify sexual abuse. So I hope that information has been helpful. In the coming weeks, we'll be talking about how to identify the signs of a child who is being sexually abused or who's been sexually threatened, how to deal with a conversation with your child who has been sexually abused, how to deal with sexual abuse when it is a close family member who has abused a child. How do you handle that conversation? How do you handle that conflict? So I look forward to meeting you guys again next week as we talk about this, as we answer more questions. And I continue to encourage you to follow us and check us out on our social media pages, Parent Tips KE. And hopefully we get to talk again in the near future. So have a good day and thank you for joining us.